I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James Whitefield, Yates Meanakhimes.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks and Game Time. And today, I am hosting the show for this Wednesday mailbag, along with my good buddy Alex Barth. Y'all asked a lot of fantastic questions ahead of this weekend's matchup against the Miami Dolphins, so we're going to be getting into that. Talking a little bit at the top of the show about the Patriots injury report that dropped like minutes before we actually started the show. But before we get into all of that, Alex, first of all, how the heck are you doing, buddy? And what were your big takeaways from today? It was our first day of the week in Gillette Stadium. We heard from Gerard Mayo, Drake May, Hunter Henry. So anything stand out from what we heard at pressers?
Really just continue to be impressed with the way Drake's handling himself. Not the easiest game for him on Sunday. I would just say in terms of like turn the ball over twice, you could argue neither one was primarily his fault. He is partially at fault for both. But just, I continue, he doesn't seem like a rookie up there.
Yep.
And I thought that was highlighted by Andrew Callahan asking Hunter Henry, does Drake May remind you at all of a young Justin Herbert, who Henry played with when he was a rookie? And that's a really easy question for Hunter. Like, it's a good question by Andrew, but it's also a really easy question for Hunter Henry to dismiss. We hear guys say this all the time. Well, I don't really like doing comparisons. Every player's their own guy. And I was kind of ready for that. And no, Henry answered it. And, said, they're different in some ways, but yes, there are similarities there. It is fair to say that. And I don't think Hunter Henry's just going to say that. Again, it would have been very easy for him to just say, Drake's great, Justin's great. They're different people. I think it's pretty telling that he answered that the way he did.
And the players really aren't shying away from comparisons at all. Because we had Devon Godshaw a few weeks ago saying he looks like a young Josh Allen. Like all the draft comps that we were hearing, we've heard the Patriots players kind of touch on those. And then, one of the things that stood out for me was I asked Drake a couple questions about how he processes defenses, because obviously his growth has been outstanding. I knew he was a smart kid, and I thought that a lot of this would come together, but the level of growth that he's shown, not just mentally, but physically, like with the underneath throws where he kind of thought that spray misses were going to be an issue for him throughout his rookie year. And it's like, hey, you got to deal with it, but it'll give you so many other throws. It doesn't really matter. But we see not only is he getting better at that, he's learning, all right, I'm just going to take what the defense gives me, where he had his shortest average depth of target, his quickest time to throw last week against the Rams, and ended up with his second highest quarterback rating of the season and his highest PFF passing grade. And then like talking about how he actually reads defense, as you mentioned, really for him, it's kind of a natural thing where it really is more about spatial reasoning and knowing where guys are, what boards are going to be created. And even especially because of the Pop interception, where it looked like he was just trying to attack space, whereas Pop was trying to run. Like he said, I was running my route, and asking him, is it kind of like what Kyle Rudolph mentioned with Brady, where there's running the route the way it's drawn up, and then there's no, be a football player, turn around and look for the ball if you're in a void in space. And he said, yeah, that's pretty much how he sees it. And he tells Hunter Henry where it came back because Darian Lowe got called for a penalty for illegal formation. Really, it should have been on Michael Jordan, but that's neither here nor there. He said, yeah, Hunter did a great job settling into that space, and that's what it is. You got to be a football player. So just the Drake May love affair will continue week in and week out as he gets better every single week. But we've given him enough love. Let's dive into the injury report before we get into the many excellent questions we've got in the mailbag. So, did not participate. Jaquelin Roy with the neck. Dietrich Wise with the foot. Those popped up all throughout last week. Dietrich and Jaquelin Roy did not play on Sunday. Darian Lowe, though, is new for did not participate. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. Then with limited, a lot of the names that you expect and who've kind of been on here recently, Kyle Duggar with his ankle, Kuala with the elbow, Mapu with the neck. He was also inactive, I think largely because of that neck injury. Austin Hooper dealing with the neck. We talked about this in the locker room. There's been a lot of guys this season, it feels like, who have been dealing with neck injuries. Keon White with the knee, Anthony Jennings with the knee. Cole Strange, who returned to practice today. Gerard Mayo touched on how he has center guard versatility. Also probably a guy that, or is a guy who's been working with David Andrews behind the scenes, where we know obviously he's on IR, but Mayo wants these guys to still be around the team. So he's been very helpful in that regard. Strange limited in his return. Did it look to you like he wasn't wearing the same level of pads that other people were? It looked like he was a little bit lighter in practice.
Yeah, I saw some people say that. let's remember some of the offensive linemen they've brought in since the last time we saw him, right? Guys like Caleb Jones, guys like DeMontre Jacobs. He's not exact. Well, I guess he was next to Trent Brown in the past, but I don't know. He didn't look any bigger. I don't know that he looked any smaller. I think he just looked the same.
That's fair. I literally just thought he might have been in like shells or something because literally, like, physically looked like he wasn't carrying on as much. But whatever, he was limited. Gerard Mayo mentioned that there isn't really a timeline for his return yet because he hasn't been on the field since late last season. And we're going to have a lot of Cole Strange questions, so more on him later.
Yeah.
Full participation, Christian Ellis with an abdomen, Sione Takitaki with a knee. Both of those guys played last weekend against the Rams. Christian Ellis, more of an early down and dime roll. Sione Takitaki played more on like run type of downs. So that's pretty much the story. Don't want to see Vidarian Lowe obviously on the report, but seeing 2 linebackers as full participants is huge. And obviously getting Cole Strange back, period, should be a great boost for the offense. Now, without further ado,
I'll just say this. One more thing. Because I'm sure we'll get questions about this, about the draft and tackle versus receiver and all of that. Vidarian Lowe going back to a DNP. He's been on and off the injury report really all year. Some people look at what he's done and say, oh, hey, like maybe the Patriots have found a tackle. Sure, he's not a blue chip player. He's not Joe Thomas. One, like he's been serviceable. I think some of the reason he's gotten as much pump is one, he's been better than expected. Doesn't necessarily mean he's been great. And also he's better than their other options, clearly better than their other options, which again is not a very high bar. But he's been banged up quite a bit this year. And when you look at that position, you talk about size, and we just talked about all these big offensive linemen they've brought in. I mean, 6'5", 315, that's not a small human being by any means, but as far as tackles go, he's not that big mountainous kind of force that you see other linemen built like. So durability is going to come into question here. If you want to roll with Vidarian Lowe, and that's your plan next year, so you can draft Ted McMillan in the first round, and you can hammer defense on day 2 and things like that, you better a damn good backup because he struggles to stay on the field. And the reality is the damn good backup is probably Vidarian Lowe. Like he's more a high level backup than anything else. So it's just the fact that he's still, and I don't mean to pick on the guy. Look, it's football, players get hurt, but it's a physical position. And if you have a guy that's maybe not able to maintain week in and week out, that becomes a factor. Also looks like the Patriots added, Christian Barmore as a DNP.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he wasn't on the report, but he also wasn't at practice today, so we kind of assumed he probably wasn't a participant. I just lost my complete train of thought. But yeah, with Vidarian Lowe, the way I feel like this situation has to play out is you go in. I think Vidarian Lowe has at least earned the right to fight for a job. I think that he has done that. He's given up 2 sacks and 3 hits this year. I think you would have probably thought those numbers would have at least been doubled entering the season. Obviously, like you said, he's been in and out of the lineup. That has something to do with it. But even still, I feel like his play is, I think being banged up is part of it, but I feel like it's starting to level out. Like as a run blocker, he really isn't a plus player for you. I think you saw against Jared Verse was the first time I feel like I really saw him play in and play out, kind of just fighting for his life. Like the pressure numbers weren't terrible, but you could see that he was overmatched and was really just trying to make sure that Verse wasn't just instantly beating him. And that's kind of what you expect. Vidarian Lowe, like you said, I have him right now in my grades as a spot starter. And there's nothing wrong with that. A spot starter is valuable in the NFL because of injuries. But I think in the offseason, you probably don't want to sign a left tackle because I feel like that's a bit of a slap in the face. Like the guy's worked so hard for you. He's still got a year on his contract. Like, as much as I like Ronnie Stanley, I just don't think that's the best move organizationally. But I do think maybe the second rounder, if you don't like the value in the first round and maybe you get a lighter pick, then you go for offensive tackle. But yeah, I think that you definitely need a quality player. And I think the way that makes the most sense is spending some early capital on that kind of guy. But like you said, we're probably going to touch on that again in the mailbag. And actually, before we get into it, we've been doing this for about 10 minutes, so it's time to pay the bills. Quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Be right back.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up 100 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. That's it. Prize Picks puts their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So when your pick hits, you can get your money as quick as 15 minutes. And how about this? Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, let's get into the mailbag. First question, Cole Strange. Given Strange was more used to a West Coast style offense and excelled, if memory serves, at outside zone in college, do you expect his impact to be greater, obviously, with Alex Van Pelt's West Coast offense? I will say in college, just before you get to it, he ran more of a versatile scheme. Like, he did a little bit of everything, so it wasn't just outside zone. But as we know, he was drafted under that Matt Patricia offense where the whole plan was to become this outside zone scheme. And obviously, that kind of blew up in their faces. But Alex, what do you think about his fit in this offense under Alex Van Pelt?
Yeah, it's better. I mean, it's definitely better in what they were doing. Now, they haven't run as much outside zone as we maybe thought this season. Some of that is very well possible because they can't, and with the personnel they have. So maybe getting Cole Strange back, maybe that's the impact. Maybe they go back to some of that outside zone. So, there's that, but it's going to come down to pass blocking with him. Mm-hmm. Last year, he was getting manhandled in pass pro pretty regularly before he got hurt. And we know he can move. Like, we know he can do that. And there's definitely ways Patriots can take advantage of that. But you look at who they are with Drake May outside of the Chicago game. I mean, they're throwing 35, 40 times a game. Yeah. So pass blocking is going to be the emphasis. It's great that he can pull on the outside zone and get into space and create holes. And there's room for that. But if you're only going to run the ball 20 times a game and you're going to throw it 40 and he can't pass block, that the ability to do that really doesn't mean as much.
We'll get more to the pass pro stuff in the next question. It's another kind of strange adjacent one, but I'll say with the outside zone stuff, they've been decent. Like, if you look at the numbers, I think it's like when you look at their EPA per play, they're about dead average in the league. And I think part of that is it doesn't fit their system very well, but I think they've coached it enough and repped it enough that they can survive doing it. But there's no question that inside zone and all the gap schemes are much better for the big guys that they have. Now, yes, I think especially if Cole Strange is at center, where like the center is the guy that the running back is typically reading and going off of in that outside zone scheme. Ben Brown has filled in very admirably, and you got to respect what he's done out there as somebody who was signed off a practice squad midweek, mid-season, but also he's not the most athletic guy. He's more of a big kind of burly type. So you would like a guy like Cole Strange who can get those reach blocks, who also has power to his game. I know that his anchor isn't great, but he's still a strong dude for his size. So I absolutely think the outside zone scheme would fit him better. And with like the pin pull stuff where they asked the centers to get out in the space where David Andrews didn't look, I know he liked it, but obviously as an older guy, it's not really where he thrives. And Cole Strange is like the ideal type of run blocking outside zone center. But you did mention pass protection very fairly. So do you feel that we will say screw continuity and play Strange on Sunday? One, it didn't sound like that's on the table. I know Mayo was saying that they're trying to go day to day. So with Barmore, he pretty much told us, yeah, he's going to practice this week. It doesn't sound like the possibility, or that he was going to play. Doesn't sound like really that's a trajectory for Strange. But would you rather play him at center or at left guard if when he does return?
So can I say it's too early to know?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Where I'm at this point is, like you said, I don't think Strange is going to play this week. I think there's probably a week or two ramp up, and then you have the bye week in there too. So they kind of have an extra week to get him ready if they want.
The plan we had for Barmore, pretty much for him.
Right. So the way I look at it, if you're Michael Jordan, if you're Ben Brown, game on. Mm-hmm. One of those two guys is going to lose their job, and it sucks, but that's life in the NFL. And if they were to make the decision right now, and by the way, like assuming that they're happy with where Strange is at center, and we actually saw him snap today, like very briefly, and it was just like 2-man line combinations, but clearly he's made enough progress that they have him doing that. If they're not comfortable with him at center, he's playing left guard, like period, full stop.
Yep.
I'm not forcing the issue at center, but all things being equal, if they feel like he's ready, if David Andrews has done a good job, which David Andrews out of the sling, by the way, good for him. To me, it comes down to not so much about what's better for a stranger. It's about, who do you take out of the lineup? I think if I had to do it right now, all things even, I think Michael Jordan's the odd man out. Ben Brown had a couple of rough games there at the beginning of the month, but I thought he settled down in this last game. That could change. Maybe he comes out against Miami, gets blown up. Like, I don't know, but I think it's going to come down to those two guys, and they're both playing for their jobs right now.
100%. I think it's going to be whoever's playing worse whenever close range is able to be active. Because if you look at last week, Michael Jordan has played better since he was dealing with the ankle injury for a couple weeks. There are still holes in his game where he doesn't sustain blocks as a run blocker, and pass protection he's a bit spotty. Line games, if you go from Ben Brown down to Vidarian Lowe, they've been kind of getting hurt by those pretty consistently. I know Ben Brown / Michael Jordan gave up a sack last week where Braden Fisk was able to come around on I think it was a TT stunt where he was, combining with another defensive tackle for the Rams. So, it's hard to say right now because obviously both Michael Jordan and Ben Brown are replacement level players. But if Ben Brown continues to be solid, I'd like better play at guard than necessarily I would at center because it's a higher value position. But at the same time, Cole Strange gives you the ability to win one-on-one as a pass blocker more consistently than Brown does. So there's advantages to both, but I think it's going to come down to, hey, who had the best week last week? Oh, Ben Brown, you gave up a sack, or Michael Jordan, there were 2 tackles for loss that you caused. Sorry, buddy, you're getting pulled out of the lineup. And as much as I do like continuity, it also comes down to execution, where if you're not getting the job done, I'm sorry, you're on the hot seat. Pretty simple, straightforward there. Given the Pats are most likely, hopefully, signing or drafting a wide receiver 1 in the offseason, who's on the outs? It's a pretty good young wide receiver core, so I assume they move on from Bourne. What do you think?
So just to use a name, DK Metcalf, right? Metcalf, Pop, Booty, Bourne, Polk. I think that's your 5. If they bring in 2, then maybe Kendrick Bourne is on the outs. Look, if he keeps playing like he did last week, which I think he will, because again, Kendrick Bourne's a good receiver. I don't know why I'm literally the only person on the planet besides Kendrick Bourne who can see this. 3 coaching staffs have tried to bench him. All 3 had to go back to him, and when they did, he made plays. Not to mention, unbelievable leader, great locker room guy, all of that. I'm not rushing Kendrick Bourne out of the building. I know people are going to be annoyed I didn't say Javon Baker. I don't think they're super happy with his development. And, maybe he goes to the practice squad. Or maybe they keep 6. Look, they kept 7 this year. We know they're not against it. But, yeah, I wouldn't rush Bourne out of the building. I wouldn't. And that's assuming everybody gets the end of camp healthy and all of that. But it's so again, you're Booty's staying, Douglas is staying. You figure they're going to bring in at least 1. That's 3. Bourne is your 4th receiver there. That makes all the sense in the world. I'm not forgetting somebody, Taylor, right? And then you have Polk and Baker, and you have to figure out what to do with them. Maybe that's the 5. Maybe that's Booty, Bourne, Douglas, new guy. Yeah, Polk.
And then Baker would be the guy.
Right, and then Baker, because Osborne's not going to be here.
Taekwon's gone.
Taekwon's gone, right? Maybe like that to me is the group. They should not move on from Kendrick Bourne. He's still under contract. I don't think there's a ton of guaranteed money. Maybe they'd have to restructure it. I would not move on from Kendrick Bourne until you absolutely have to.
I do think it's a very team-friendly deal where they could get out of the deal if they needed to, especially next season. But I'm with you. Now, I was hesitant about KB. I've been singing his praises for years. I think he's very underrated and underappreciated. But also the rust I was seeing, especially in that Titans game, I was like, ooh, is this just rust? Is this kind of where we're at now with him? But we did see him take a huge step forward last week. So, and at the end of the day, this offense needs consistency. There's so much inexperience. And this may sound like another cop-out, but I really think it's going to come down to camp. If Javon Baker, something clicks like it did with Kayshon Boutte, I think that he has to be part of the lineup because he's one of your best deep ball receivers, I think, regardless of if you bring in a veteran or not. I think he's truly a very advanced deep ball technician. And then with Polk, all right, if he pops off, then maybe he and DeMario Douglas kind of rotate or something like that. I think they want to keep the young receivers, Boutte, Boutte, Pop, Polk, Baker. They all have the same. It's a B or a P. It's so annoying to try to get through in your head. But yeah, I really think it's going to come down to, at the end of the day, who performs better in camp. Because I think if Javon Baker, especially as a 4th-round pick, like you said, come on, bring me back. If he doesn't play well for you, and I'm just a blur right now, if he doesn't play well, then yeah, you're going to have to make a tough decision. But we also saw they carried 7 receivers this season. So I don't think bringing in the veteran necessarily means they move on from one of these guys. But Polk and, oh my God, I keep wanting to say Booty. Polk and Baker, both obviously at some point between now and the end of next summer, need to show that they actually deserve reps and not just, oh, there are young guys, we need to get them out there for experience, because we've seen that does kind of hurt the team, where sometimes Baker's running a route when he's supposed to be run blocking, or Jalen Polk is committing penalties and kind of helping shoot the offense in the foot. So those guys got to prove themselves, but I'm also not against them keeping 7 receivers again if they feel like it's the best thing for the team. All right, one more before we get to another little quick ad break. Is Kaden Wallace coming back anytime soon? It'd be nice to know if right tackle will also be a priority next offseason and free agency. Now, we did ask Jerod Mayo earlier today if Kaden Wallace's return was on the horizon. He said, nah, nothing yet. So it doesn't seem like it, unfortunately. Personally, I think that is the frustrating part, because you do need to know if you need a right tackle next year. I think the move Kaden Wallace to left tackle at this point, you probably need tackles on both sides. So at this point, just keep him where he's comfortable. Keep Mike Nwenu where he's comfortable. But yeah, I mean, I really don't think we know. And if we don't see anything from Kaden Wallace, I think at the bare minimum, we see them sign some type of veteran right tackle who's more of that like Vidarian low-level spot starter, who he can be that bridge for you and give Kaden Wallace time where he doesn't need to rush out there. But I also don't think you want to necessarily sign a starter either, because at some point you do want Kaden Wallace on the field.
Yeah, look, I think he'll be back at some point, just because Mayo hasn't ruled him out for the year when he's been asked about his impact, and it would be great to know, but use the top 100 pick on the guy. Like, you're going into next year assuming he's your starting right tackle. You should. And yeah, I'd have a decent backup. I'd have a good backup, but right tackle should not be a priority. This is what they've done at guard that's led to this logjam mess where they keep just throwing picks at the problem, where guys are hurt or getting benched, and instead of giving them time to develop, they're just on to the next guy, and they've created this logjam. It's not ideal, but yeah, I think you need to give Kaden Wallace the benefit of the doubt going into next year and let him develop at right tackle. Put him there, leave him there.
They're gonna do the. I'm just mentally preparing all of us. They like
cross training. I think like, honestly, I've said this before on shows, but I don't know that I'm more optimistic about any member of the coaching staff more than Scott Peters, and that may sound weird to people, but as ugly as it's been, how many of these games have we come out of saying, it wasn't great, but it's a lot better than we thought it was going to go. It's a lot better than we should have been. And the fact that they've been able to get even the play they have with a revolving door and guys off the street, and most of these guys weren't even with the team in camp. Imagine what Scott Peters is going to be able to do when he has 5 true NFL caliber players together week in and week out. Like, if this is the floor, and it's the floor, but if this is the floor for Scott Peters, it's going to go up from here. It's only going to get better from here. Yeah, I actually don't hate that. I feel pretty good about that. So the one thing that bugs me is all the cross training, but you know what? For what this year is, they actually needed it. You won't need it long. You shouldn't need it long term. You better not need it long term, because you want to get 5 guys and stick with them. But I'm actually for all the complaining I've done about some of the personnel moves on the offensive line, I actually think Scott Peters, with what he's been given, has done a tremendous job. Now, just let's give him a little bit more to work with.
Absolutely, because I don't think people really – I think people understand more now that it's kind of settled in a little bit, but the lack of experience and just talent, obviously, like, you're talking everyone but Mike Nwenu is a replacement-level starter at best. That's just not the kind of way that you can thrive in the NFL. What do we hear from that every week? Scott Peters always is like, yeah, every week you're dealing with like some elite pass rusher, an elite defensive tackle, 2 usually. Most teams have 2 guys that you really need to orient your game plan around. It just isn't easy. And then you talk about the inexperienced Demontre Jacobs. This is his first year as a starter. He didn't play last year as a rookie. Vidarian Lowe, obviously, this is his first year as a full-time starter, his 3rd season in the league. left guard, Michael Jordan, he's been in the league for a while, but he was bouncing around practice squads until this season. And obviously Ben Brown in his situation. So yes, give him some veterans that he can work with, guys where I think the strike system may come a little bit clearer to them because they're like, oh, I'm just doing what I've been doing, but in a way that's more efficient versus the young guys where they're kind of drinking from a fire hose. And I feel like you saw that with Leighton Robinson, where they clearly love him. They think he's super talented, but I just think that everything's kind of coming at him fast. Even City, so I put in that category as well. All right, we got some more mailbag questions, but first, quick words from our friends at Game Time. Be right back.
'Tis the most wonderful time of the year. Yes, the NBA season, folks. It is the best. Look, the NFL is great. I understand. But if you're looking into star power, celebrity, entertainment, it's the NBA. There's no doubt about it. And my Celtics, I'm looking for them to defend. We need a new dynasty in the NBA. We need one. Okay? And I think this Celtic group can do it. I know the Celtic group can do it. And you know who else, from what I understand, is a Celtic fan? Is Hugh Jackman. Yes. Wolverine himself, the greatest showman, Hugh Jackman, is a big Celtic fan. And if you're like us and you want to check out the Celtics or maybe any other team that happens to be coming to town to try to knock off the kings of the NBA, the Celtics, make sure you go to Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Now, Game Time, and you can get your Celtics tickets there. It's really easy to do. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff, right, to show you incredible deals and great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Like when I go to my Game Time app, it says Celtics game right there. Boom, pops up, how much the price is. I'm ready to go. It's as simple as that. They have super deals. They're as good as it gets. Check it out on the Game Time app. And again, I can't emphasize how easy it is, even for an idiot like me. You download the app. It's got a G on it for Game Time. You just click it on. You can designate where you want to go, what you want to do. You can, favorite your games and your cities and so forth. And it pops up on the screen. You click it on, and there you go. And you're off and running. It's as simple as that. They also have curated deals that make it easy to find best prices and great seats. They have the super deal. And I love this part. You know the view of your seats before you buy them. You know what you're getting. And it has the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and so much more. So, Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on concerts, comedy, theater, sports. Oh, speaking of concerts, Coldplay coming to Gillette Stadium in July of 2025. Tickets are already up on Game Time. Not bad either. Not bad at all. And the Jingle Ball Kiss, the iHeart Jingle Ball at the Garden, you can get tickets on that too. And they always have big stars around Christmas time. So all-in pricing, toggling, they call it toggling. It shows you everything up front. No surprise fees at checkout. And I mentioned the seat views, great panoramic views, so you know you're buying. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Game time, baby. All right, let's see what we should go with next. Here's one. We get this question a lot, and this is going to be a very quick answer because we don't have a whole lot of info we can give. But Alex, any update on former fan favorite Jabril Peppers?
So last I saw, his next court date is this Friday. I'm sure we'll learn more there. I don't know what. I'm not super well versed in the legal system. The only one in my family that's not a lawyer, but yeah, I'm guessing we'll get some sort of update on Friday since that's when his next court date is.
Yep, that's about it. I got nothing else to add. All right, moving on. If you could pick one blue chip player to make this team a playoff team, what position would you fill? And for the heck of it, who would that player be that they could realistically get?
I mean, have I not said this enough? DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf.
Give me DK Metcalf on the outside, catch and jump balls from Drake May. No brainer.
So why wide receiver over left tackle?
That's a good question. I have hammered left tackles. Because you said realistic. like them
Mhm.
getting a blue. If I were to just look players in the league, blue chip caliber player, left tackle, there is no realistic option for the Patriots to add. There might be in the draft. I guess if we could do the draft, that's different, but I don't think that's what this exercise is. Go get Drake May, the 80-20 winner.
Yeah.
That's a lot more realistic. Can I say Jamar Chase? Like, he looks pissed
Oh,
off
hell yeah.
in Cincinnati. Like, and these guys always move. These guys always move. They're never happy. It not to, I guess, this question's point, but this is why I didn't freak out when they didn't get Brandon Ayuk. This is why I didn't freak out when they didn't get Calvin Ridley. Would have been nice additions, but would have been ahead of schedule. They still had time. Now we're getting right into that sweet spot, which is this offseason. Right into that sweet spot to add that true coverage dictating Tuesday morning player. And you're seeing wide receivers all around the league not loving where they're at. I'm not saying the
Except for
Patriots.
Drake May's guys. Drake May's guys.
Drake May. So you have Drake May's guys liking it here. You got a whole ton of cap space you can spend. The selling points are starting to add up. I understand why you didn't come here this year. We're in a ton of selling points. Starting to add up a little bit.
Yeah. So if we're talking about guys that aren't happy, I would go with A.J. Brown. I've kind of been like stirring the pot on this one a little bit ever since that game where he was getting kind of pissed off at Jalen Hurts. But A.J. Brown is literally the perfect X receiver for Drake May. Honestly, the perfect X receiver, period. Like, it's him and Jamar Chase, I feel like, are pretty like well in that top tier. I think DK's like right under them, but I think their consistency and obviously just being freak athletes is unmatched. And also, if we're talking about the argument of a receiver versus a left tackle, I've been going back and forth on this so much because watching like the Lions and the Eagles be able to just say, hey, we're going to put the game on our offensive line at the end and we're just going to steamroll you for like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes or whatever. I'm so jealous of that. And I want that for the Patriots, to be able to actually have the offensive line be a true and obvious strength of the team. That said, the offensive line, I think, needs multiple pieces. I think you need to basically completely replace the left side in terms of guys that you see being starters long-term. And then obviously you still don't know what you have at right tackle, and center is also a pretty huge question mark. Receiver, I think you got Pop. Obviously, he's not, the most talented slot in the world, but he's absolutely a guy that you can work with. I think at that Z spot, you can have a combination of Booty and Jalen Polk, whoever's the best. X, you're hoping Javon Baker becomes that guy. But if you can plug an A.J. Brown, a Jamar Chase, a DK Metcalf, a T. Higgins into that X role, that takes so much pressure off of everybody else, where now the guys who should be Zs can actually be Zs instead of trying to pretend to be X receivers when they don't really have the size or the raw athleticism. So if you could just plug one player into this offense and it makes a huge difference, I think you're going to get more if it's a receiver who can dictate coverage, be that easy button for Drake May, than you would with a left tackle, even though I think that would benefit you both in the run game and in the passing game. All right. What are the odds a running back is brought in or drafted in the offseason since Stevenson's efficiency has continued to wither? And you were beating this drum all early in the season. Do not run Ramondre Stevenson into the ground. You will regret it. We thought that Antonio Gibson and him were going to be a true 1-2 punch like we saw with Mondre and Zeke last year. Gibson's role has been so confusing. I like a lot of the things Alex Van Pelt's been doing lately. His lack of use as an actual true third down back who you use as a matchup weapon, we haven't seen it. It's been so bizarre to me. And then even as a runner, I think he's had his moments, but I'm starting to feel more and more that he shouldn't be the guy. I think I would love to see them if they have the space in the middle rounds to go after a Ramondre type in the fourth. But I absolutely think somebody should be brought in because I don't really love the running back room right now. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they trust Antonio Gibson. And he's still on a contract, so we'll have to see what happens there. But maybe he becomes the third back. Jermichael Hasty, I think you can move on from. Yeah. It's too good.
They have Jermichael Hasty games or whatever the hell that means. Are you sure you want to get rid of him?
It's too good of a year to not draft a running back. Plain and simple. Like, you got to take it. And now, every time we say this, we said this with the wide receivers 4 years ago, and they gave us Trey Nixon in the 7th round. We did this with linebackers a few years ago. They did unreal linebacker class. They didn't draft a linebacker. We did it with receivers a few years ago. They didn't draft a receiver. Now, obviously, different people calling the shots, but man, when I look at this board, now look, they're not going to get Ashton Genty, who is pound for pound the best player in the draft. You have guys like Amari and Hampton. You have guys like Ollie Gordon. You have guys. So let me go through a couple of these. Amari and Hampton, there's the draw. One, true 3-down versatile back, not a 3rd down back, a 3-down back. You said pair him with somebody like Mondre, not as physical as Mondre is, a little bit quicker, but kind of that same thing where he can run between the tackles, he can run outside, he can catch the ball. Wouldn't put him in pass pro as much as Ramondre, but that same idea, that well-rounded back. And obviously he has the chemistry with Drake May. Ollie Gordon, everybody thought was going to be the RB1 in this draft, even more than Genty. He had an unbelievable year last year. Problem was, everybody figured out that Ollie Gordon was Oklahoma State's entire offense. And unlike Ashton Genty, Ollie Gordon can't make it work against 9-man boxes, which Ashton Genty does because he's a freak. Right, exactly. So his stock has tanked. Still a tremendous player. And if he's going to be in a spellback role with a quarterback like Drake May, there might be tremendous value there. You get him late on day 3. Travion Henderson, I have liked him for years. He keeps going back to school. He is in, so I think he's a top 5 running back in college football. But probably the second best back, a guy named Quinshon Judkins, transferred to Ohio State from Ole Miss, and they're sharing the backfield. Judkins is better, but Travion Henderson's still really freaking good. He hasn't gotten a ton of run this year, though, because he's buried behind Judkins. Another guy that, like, most years, Ollie Gordon, Amari Hampton, Travion Henderson, top 50 picks. Some of these guys might fall to day 3. So they're like, you have the opportunity to take advantage. And we give you one more name, Taylor, because in the
I missed this.
Yeah, really. We haven't done these shows this year. Maybe we should get back to that. Was it the 2022 draft around like late March after the combine? His visits were wrapping up, and I'm really digging into some of the 7th round guys, 6th, 7th round guys. I found this running back. Nobody thought they're going to take a running back. They just drafted Ramondre Stevenson, all of that. But I'm like, holy crap, there's this kid who is a perfect balance with Ramondre Stevenson. And he went to Rutgers. What a Bill guy. That was Isaiah Pacheco, who they obviously didn't take. I wanted him here so bad. They took Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris instead. Well, Rutgers has another back this year, a guy named Kyle Monongai. I think I'm getting that right. I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. But Kyle Monongai, similar kind of player. My comp for Isaiah Pacheco at the time was like a physical Dion Lewis.
Ooh, I
like a more physical Dion Lewis. Now, obviously, that's high praise for a guy that wasn't supposed to go high. That was the ceiling comp. Monongai is not quite as quick.
Mm-hmm.
He's not quite as quick, but he's quicker. He's 5'9", 210. He's quicker, much quicker than he looks for his size, and he loves contact, and he does not lose contact. To me, Kyle Monongai, late 3rd, early 4th round pick, who the league would usually sleep on, he'd go in the 5th. He's going to go like outside of the top 200 this year because there's so many good running backs in this draft, unless the league smartens up. We'll see. Generally they don't. I mean, you also have guys like Jaden Ott. You also have guys like Donovan Edwards, who I know has had a down year, but has some talent. Nick Singleton. I mean, this class is loaded. This class is freaking loaded, and they can't keep running Ramondre Stevenson into the ground. They absolutely should draft one of these backs this year because there is year 1 contributors up and down the board. If you can't tell, I'm very excited about this running back class. This is that receiver class. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Not the JSN class.
Right. The one before that?
Yeah. Was it 22?
I think so. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave. I mean, we were talking about guys like, there were some guys way down the board that we were talking about. It's hard to find all the 1st round picks. This is that draft for running backs.
Well, that is exciting because I'm so sick and tired of if Ramondre is dealing with an injury and clearly isn't 100%, or if he has to miss a game, you're just like, all right, yes, I know we have a lot of running backs, but as soon as Ramondre's out of the picture, you're like, this is not a good running back room. It's complementary with him, but without him at his best, it just is not very intimidating, especially when you don't have an offensive line that can create for you and move people off the ball and create some pretty big run lanes. And yeah, I just think, especially, I'm kind of looking at this team. I would love to see them build like the Lions because I think that's a fantastic blueprint. Another team that kind of had to come up from the mud and really just do the thing where you draft, you develop, and you wait for your guys to really get good. But that Thunder and Lightning duo doesn't necessarily have to be Thunder and Lightning the way they have it, but having two legitimate RB1s who you really never get a break as a defense, I think that would be huge. And with Drake May, we've seen the way the defenses play the Patriots completely flip, where for years with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and even with Jacoby Brissett, teams are like, we are going to load the box. Please pass. I would love to see you try to pass on us. Now we're seeing two high shells every week because no one wants to see Drake May throw the ball. Any running back that comes into this system, assuming they can fix the offensive line, is going to be able to eat. And if you can just lean on that and be like, hey, Drake, just hand off all game because our O-line's dominating and our running backs are fresh, I think that's how you really get the best out of Drake and the rest of this offense.
I'll give you, if you want the Thunder and Lightning, like true Thunder and Lightning, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, another one of these guys that's probably late first, early fourth, good quickness. He's not, going to run anybody over. He's not a major factor in the pass game. And there's also, when these guys come from Tennessee, it's a pretty big adjustment just because of the offense they run there with the wide splits. You're not running into traffic pretty much ever. But if you want like the Thunder and Lightning kind of thing, Dylan Sampson's probably, there's so many options. There's going to be so many. I'm
watching Drake May, but I'm also going to be very excited to actually get in the draft tape. Just now that they're actually good and it's not just we need hope, there's not a whole lot of time for us to dive into that kind of thing.
Right.
We will get there eventually. All right. We got into this one yet? No. Will the Pats stop shunning design QB runs, which could improve their red zone offense? Now, Gerard Mayo was asked today if we could potentially see more of Drake May on the design runs because he's not scrambling as much, because it seems like they just want to minimize the damage that he takes, which is understandable. But at the same time, like I know the 3rd-and-1 play, I was so frustrated when I'm like, you need a yard. You have a quarterback who's a running and passing threat, and you basically completely take away the threat of him running the ball without even like, I love if at least once we see a naked keeper where it's like, yeah, just because he's under center doesn't mean he's not still someone you have to account for. But he did acknowledge, Gerard Mayo, that eventually we will see some design runs. We've kind of heard them hint, especially over the past few weeks, that there are being things in the playbook that they just haven't used, but that they expect to show up in certain plans. I hope that happens because, again, I'm so sick and tired of these short yardage situations where you go under center. But at the same time, I do get the mentality of, hey, we want to be physical. We've got Mike Nwenu. We've got Ramondre Stevenson. We think we're going to get it more than we believe that you can stop it. But what's your take on this whole thing? Because I know some people are just furious that we're not seeing Drake make it like 5 design runs a game.
Yeah, there should be more of them. There should be more, and especially in the red zone, like the question says, to help him out. I'm all for, with these quarterbacks, and this is something I've knocked the Bills for a long time, that they overdo it with the Josh Allen runs, and he's banged up late in the year and it limits the ability to win in the playoffs. I'm all for erring on the side of not running him enough compared to running him too much. I'd rather not run him enough. Yep. They have plenty of room to run him before they even get to not enough. So I think you can mix in a few more, that 4th-and-1 situation they had this week, or the couple of 4th-and-shorts they had in the red zone before they kicked field goals. I wouldn't, even if and the thing is, you don't need to run him a lot for him to be effective. Even if you just run him once or twice, well, now the defense has to respect that. And even if it doesn't happen every time, you still put it in their head. So I wouldn't do a ton. But the number shouldn't be high, but it also should be more than 0.
I agree with that. I think there also were some inside zone reads. Last week I did notice where sometimes, like with RPOs, it's important to say, okay, is this not being called? Or are these options where you're just not taking the option that everybody wants to see? Where like this was much more of a problem with Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien, but it's like you're running all these RPOs with pass options, but you're never passing the ball, so no one respects that you're actually going to do it. I think we've seen the Patriots get much better when we see like a downfield RPO to pop. I think it's kind of the same thing where they're mixing some in. Again, I like it in more critical situations like short yardage and all that to create a numbers advantage. But at the same time, maybe they're just trying to do it incrementally. But we will see. But I agree. They do need to use it at least a little bit more. All right, kind of rapid fire for the last few. They're not super in-depth. And I know you got a ton of stuff to do tonight. Should the Patriots bring in a new wide receivers coach or change up their philosophy for wide receivers?
It's one and the same. Look, they've struggled to develop. They did obviously under Belichick, and now this year the development's not going well. They could. The bigger thing for me is this is why I don't want them drafting a receiver high in the draft. As much as I like Ted McMillan, as much as even Travis Hunter has shown ability as a wide receiver, I said this last year with Martin Harrison Jr. People that, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. is Patriots proof. I don't think the Patriots were Marvin Harrison Jr. proof. That kind of thing. The best thing they can do is bring in somebody who's already developed and already knows how to win in this league and win at a high level and just plug them and play them. So again, whether that's Metcalf, whether that's Higgins, whether that's Chase, whoever it is, to me, forget changing up the wide receiver coach and trying to develop guys. No, just go get a guy that can play. Just go get a guy that's already developed and find somebody else who's already done the work for you.
I agree. When we talk about the development of these receivers, I feel like everyone only focuses on Baker and Polk. And for obvious reasons, you wanted to see more from them and they're not producing. But it's like, yeah, but you also have Booty and Pop, who are objectively much better than they were last season. Pop, for as explosive and fun as he was, every single week you saw 2 or 3 times where he clearly was not running the right route. And it didn't really fix itself throughout the season. Kayshon Boutte obviously got benched. And even when he started to play late because they had so many injuries, he still wasn't really making much of an impact. Whatever the coaching staff did this year, whatever the players did, like they have gotten better. So I think we're seeing maybe it's taken the young guys a while, but even like Kendrick Bourne, the fact that he struggled early, obviously missed so much time, it's understandable. And now he's getting better. So I think I agree with you. Like with the offensive line, like with the offense in general, it's easy to blame it on the coaches, but look at the talent they're dealing with. Let's get some guys in where it's like we're not doing this thing where we keep trying to develop young guys and we have no really good plan behind them. Get the veterans, give Drake May real true pros, and let some of those young guys develop without the pressure of needing to step up before they're ready.
And so look, like, and people might look at that and say, well, you're going to have to develop wide receivers eventually. And that's not incorrect, but you know, to borrow from baseball, like what some teams do, like the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? The Los Angeles Dodgers have a long history of being able to develop pitching. Like they are tremendous for decades. They've been able to, you give them a half decent pitching prospect and they'll get an MLB caliber player out of them. What that allows them to do is then go expend more resources to get bats because they know, all right, like we don't need, and sometimes they go out and pay pitchers big money, but they'll be like, we can develop this guy. So the Patriots can, there are positions they have strengths in developing. Corner is the big one. This team, and I know it doesn't look like it right now this year, but like generally speaking, they can churn out corners. Mike Pellegrino is excellent at developing corners. Offensive line, again, I like what I've seen from Scott Peters, another high-profile position, another impact position that, all right, if you feel like you can develop guys, it's not as much of a big deal. So should they get better at identifying and developing wide receiver talent in the draft? Yes, that's obviously a good thing. But in the meantime, I also think you need to have a level of recognition of, all right, this is a weak spot for us. We need to address it differently, and that like just spread the assets out in a way that plays to your strengths and weaknesses.
I totally agree. And it was like with Scar with the offensive line. Like, yes, for certain positions, you do need to draft a guy pretty high. We also knew you could get a couple undrafted free agents in, and as long as they worked hard, they were smart, and they had enough athleticism, Scar was going to make them serviceable. So you didn't have to get a guy in like the 5th round or whatever. You could actually wait and use those resources elsewhere. And then speaking of the receivers, I feel like we just got to address it. When do you think Javon Baker will get more involved? Frankly, I'm just every week, I'm not expecting anything because it seems like when he gets his opportunities, something goes wrong. You had Gerard Mayo openly criticizing him. Also curious how you felt about that, because I know some people do not like coaches ever, commenting on guys publicly, especially young players. But also I feel like, well, Gerard actually played, so I feel like he gets a little more leeway versus someone who's only ever coached. Maybe, that's just my perspective, and I don't think it's totally right. I'm open to other opinions. But, I mean, it just feels like Javon keeps making mistakes and has yet to truly earn the coaching staff's trust. So I don't think you can predict when he's going to get more involved because he has to actually show it. If he has a game where he has a big catch and he runs all the right routes and he blocks all the right guys, then I'll start to say, yeah, maybe we see more next week. But I just haven't seen nearly enough to make an actual prediction.
I don't think till next year. I don't mind him remember when Gerard Mayo was going to be too much of a player's coach? As long as he went over it with Baker first, this is like the soft comment. Right. I don't mind saying it as long as it's not the first time he's hearing it. If it's the first time Javon Baker's hearing that, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But that second, I don't know what was wrong on the first kick return. That was weird. I mean, the second kick return was a mess.
I think the first one he didn't declare fast enough because you could see they were looking back like, is he about to take this out? Because I forget who was lead blocking for him, but they seemed like they were a little bit confused. I think
that makes sense. But second one was a mess, and yeah, he seems far away right now. I think that's going to be something we revisit next year.
I hope it's a Keyshawn Boutte situation. Not the same, because Boutte was kind of iced out. It wasn't even like, oh, he couldn't figure it out. It was more like the coaches just didn't have any trust in him and didn't want to. I don't even say coaches. He has said Bill. So Bill benched him, obviously. But again, this is the guy's first year. I think that this is one of those situations, kind of like City and Layden and Jalen, where there's so much that they're kind of taking in. I think they just need a year under their belt to really reevaluate, get some more time with Drake, get that chemistry even down even further so they can come into camp with confidence and maybe have a bit of an advantage and build on that. But yeah, this season, I don't want to say it's a wash, but I'm really not expecting much. All right, wrap it up with this. How much of a priority should CB2 be after Sunday's loss to the Rams?
Yeah, so I said this. If you're somebody who wants them to draft Will Johnson or Travis Hunter to play corner, be loud this week. This is your week. That was the big takeaway from that game. I know there's been some debate about the strategy with Christian Gonzalez. Was it actually right? Was it wrong? The point being, they don't have really anybody with him. Jonathan Jones has lost a step. He probably should look to make the move to safety. Marco Wilson obviously got cut after the game. Marcus Jones, I thought, held his own when he could, but at the end of the day, 5'8", 5'8", and he's a slot corner for a reason. He's a true slot corner. They probably got to stop playing him on the boundary. They need somebody else. We'll see what
they don't have any options.
Right. So we'll see what happens. I was surprised they didn't activate Alex Austin for that game, and I think they probably regret not doing so. We'll see what Alex Austin gives them this week, but even then, they're going to need another body on the boundary. It's a priority. I don't know. I mentioned Will Johnson. I think that's a little bit rich, or maybe this is somewhere you go get a veteran, but they need to add a legitimate outside cornerback option opposite Gonzalez this offseason. I don't know that it's in that big three. To me, the big three needs are still wide receiver, tackle, pass rusher.
Pass rusher, yeah.
Corner probably leads off that next group in terms of the biggest needs.
I agree. I thought it was a need before Sunday, and I'm not really using Sunday as the litmus test because I just think that was literally the worst game that John Jones has played probably in years. I'm not going to hold that against him long-term unless it becomes a repeat thing because I think that would be a little too knee-jerky, especially against that scheme. That first explosive that he gave up to Puka, the type of motion they used with Puka coming through, I think it was the C gap, is just something you don't see very often, especially run that way. And for a guy of his experience to get duped the way he was, live watching it, I was just like, this is so ugly. But then when I was looking at the tape again, I was like, that's tough. I get it. But even still, we don't know if John Jones is going to play, or at least corner next season. And then, like you said, Marcus Jones should really just be your star, ideally. And as much as I like Alex Austin, he hasn't shown enough at the NFL level. He was promising at the end of last season, but we haven't seen anything really significant from him since. So, yeah, I agree. Corner absolutely has to be a priority, maybe just not one of the top priorities, but definitely in that mid-range. All right, Alex, thank you so much, buddy. This was a blast. Now, for the people who somehow don't know, even though we typically do our shows back-to-back, please let the people know where they can find you, what great stuff you got coming down the pipeline that we should be looking out for.
Yeah, 985sportshub.com. New Patriots beat tomorrow, new Catch 22 tomorrow on patriots.com. Yeah, check it all out.
Awesome. Thank you, buddy. And thank you all, as always, so much for watching. Now, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Peace, y'all.